In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through a step-by-step guide on how to apply your eyeshadow like a pro. We are gonna go through which brushes you need, what to look for in your eyeshadow palette, how to seamlessly blend out tones, and so much more. I think you'll be really surprised as to how easy it actually is. Let's go. The very first thing that you want to do is prep your eyelids. This is not only going to even out the color of them, but it will also prevent the natural oils from corroding your makeup and making it crease throughout the day. This is a step that is often overlooked, but is incredibly important in achieving a flawless eye look that lasts all day long. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but one really easy way is just by using your regular old concealer. The brush that I'm using here is a Sephora concealer brush. This is a handy brush to have, but not entirely necessary. So if you're looking to save some money, don't buy this one because there are some brushes coming up later that you will for sure need to do any eyeshadow work. So for this step, if you don't have this brush and you don't want to buy it, then you can definitely just use your fingers in the same motion and blend out the concealer that way. Now take a powder puff with some translucent powder on it and set the concealer by pressing down on it. Today I'm going to be working with the Norvina Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, but you do not have to own or use this specific palette to get a look like this. This eyeshadow technique is going to work with any palette that you have. You just have to think about the tones that you're using in the specific areas of the eyes. The first thing that you want to do is find a transition shade. So a transition shade helps to merge colors together and it gives some depth to eyeshadows. It is a mid-tone color. In this specific palette, a great transition shade is the color Incense. Now here are some brushes that you absolutely need to have for executing any eye look. You will need a bigger crease brush that diffuses pigment softly. This is a Sephora crease brush number 26. And you will need a smaller crease brush that deposits more pigment, like this one, which is Sephora number 24. They actually look a lot alike, but when you put them beside each other, you'll notice right away that they are very different. So number 24 is much smaller than number 26, and this actually makes a huge difference in the application. The smaller the brush, the more concentrated the pigment is. The larger the brush, the more diffused the pigment is. So you're going to use these different brushes in different places for different reasons. Using the bigger crease brush, I'm going to dip into my transition shade and I'm going to use windshield wiper motions on my crease to create a little bit of depth there. Once I get that color on there, I like to further blend and diffuse it by then switching to circular motions. At the very corners of the eyes, I like to flick up a little bit with my brush, and that just gives me an eye lift effect. My next step is to use a highlight shade on my lids. We just created a little depth in the crease, and now we want to bring forward our lid. A highlight shade can be any light color. It can be light pink, purple, brown, whatever you want. It can have a sheen like what I'm using here, but it can be matte too. So if you prefer something matte, you can definitely go ahead and use a matte light shade. I love applying this highlight shade or highlight tone using my fingers and a patting motion. The pigment payoff when you use your fingers like this is really, really great. It really packs that pigment on beautifully. Then you can use that crease brush again to softly blend that highlight tone and the transition tone together. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this content, please don't forget to leave me a comment, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. Those three things really help me succeed here on YouTube, and the better the channel does, the more likely it is that I can continue creating more helpful content for you full time. After that shameless self-promotion, let's get back to the tutorial. Now here's where we're going to start adding a little bit of shadow, and to do that we need a shadow tone. The shadow tone is basically just a darker version of your transition shade. So you can see how in this palette, this one over here, this one that's called Volatile, it works perfectly for this. Now, if you're doing a purple eye and you still want a brown transition, at the corners of the eye, you want to put in like a plum or like a really dark purple. So it doesn't always have to be a darker tone than your actual transition color. It can be in a different color family, but just remember that that shade on the outer corner of the eye should be the darkest shadow that you use in the entire look. Using your small crease brush, the smaller one that you have, you want to add that shadow to that outer corner of the eye, going from the lash line upwards and slightly into the crease. If you visualize it, what you're doing is making a sideways triangle. And this is going to create that super sexy depth in that eye socket. It's going to give you kind of like a winged effect that's really, really beautiful. We can now move on to eyeliner. If you work with any cream liners, and I suggest that you do because they are very easy to blend, then having a tight angled eyeliner brush is imperative. This is the Sephora Pro Liner 22 brush. I always start with the outside of the eye and work my way into the middle. On the outer parts of the eye, you want to keep that line super, super skinny. So you actually want to go more under the lash line as opposed to over the lash line. You want the liner to go from super skinny on the inside of the eye to thicker as you move across the lid. The next step is completely optional. I personally love a small flick or wing look on the corners of my eyes. So I almost always do it on myself, but of course you can definitely skip this step if you don't like how it looks on you. I almost always have it. You probably notice in my videos, but if you don't like it, don't worry, just stop right at the lash line and it's still going to be a beautiful application. This next step is another step that can be skipped as well, but if you really want your eyes to look like you got it done with a makeup artist, then I suggest that you do it because it really does make a difference. So what you do is you take a smudging brush. This is also a great brush to have. I use it all the time. You dip it into a black shadow and you go over the eyeliner again. My Anastasia palette didn't have a black shadow, so I just used my Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette for the black. Going over your line with a black shadow will diffuse it so that it looks a little bit softer. Don't do this again on the inner corners of the eye because it's going to thicken the line. You want to keep that area really thin, but do it from like halfway in the eye outwards and it will completely diffuse it as you get towards that outer crease, which can have a little bit of hooding, and it will really, really soften the harshness of the eye overall. It's something simple. It only takes a minute, but it does really make a huge difference and it makes the shading look very impressive. After that liner is on and it's been blended and softened and all the things, depending on how it looks on you now and what effect you want to create, you can go in with that small crease brush and you can darken up the corners a little bit more. Okay, now we can move on to cleanup. I always do my eyes first because of the shadow fallout that stains under my eyes. I always do my shadow first. So now I want to clean all that shadow fallout. So my favorite way to clean it up is with a pointed Q-tip and a moisturizer. The moisturizer on the Q-tip actually acts as an eraser and you can go right in that outer corner of the eye and you can sharpen up that line really, really easily. So if you're not good at doing a wing liner or you're just a little bit messy with your shadows, you can just clean everything up at the end. You can be as messy as you want and it does not matter. That's why I love it so, so much. After that cleanup is done, I just go in with my color corrector and my concealer. I use the warmth of my fingertips with a stippling motion in order to cover up all of that under eye discoloration. And then I set it with a translucent powder. Now we can move on to under the eyes. The same smudging brush that I used for the liner works incredibly well under the eyes. If you want under your eyes darker, you can use a darker shade, but for me, 99% of the time, I just like using my first transition shade under my eyes. It's dark enough to harmonize the top shadow, but not so dark that it makes me look too tired or brings out my dark circles. Sometimes I find when it's too dark under my eyes, it's also just a little bit too dramatic for me. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I typically do wear quite a natural makeup application. So even when I'm doing something more complex like this, I still feel more comfortable when I use a mid-tone color under the eyes. But this really is completely up to you. If you want to go darker, definitely go darker. It's just going to look more smoky. Now that all of that shadow work is complete, you can go ahead and curl your lashes, apply a lash primer, and then several coats of your favorite mascara on the top and bottom. If you want to really elevate the look, you can also use, of course, fake lashes. There are so many requests right now for a false lash application demo on this channel. It is on my to-do list, so please don't forget to subscribe. I promise that I'm gonna make it for you in the next couple of weeks. It's coming out. I have it on my request list. Here's a look side by side, one without lashes and one with lashes. Without lashes, I mean, the look still looks really pretty. It's still great, but you know, I mean, there's no doubt really, right? That the lashes take it to the next level for sure. What do you guys think? Do you like it better with lashes or without? Let me know in the comment section below. Here is the final result with my hair all down. I went and I blew out my hair with volume like I always do after my makeup. You can see how it looks close up and also how it looks from further away. This is a really classic eyeshadow placement technique that can be done with absolutely any color and any eyeshadow palette. Just remember to find a transition tone for the crease, a highlight tone for the lid, and a shadow tone for the corners of the eyes. This video's over.